So welcome everyone to the flipped recording for the assignment 1 EDU40011, and we'll just click through here to assignment 1 case study, and you'll see that assignment 1 is a word limit of 2,000 words per team and 500 words individual, plus or minus 10%. We'll come to that later. The weighting is 40%, and the due date is 5 p.m. Australian Eastern date time, Monday 10th of December 2018, which is week 6. Let's click through to the assignment overview. So by listening to primary school teachers talk about how they teach humanities and reflecting on what is happening in classrooms across Australia, you'll be much better prepared when you enter the classroom. The assignment requires you to work in a team to examine how a group of primary school teachers have put the theories and models related to the teaching of humanities into practice, and your team will produce a case study, and you'll be required to submit an individual personal reflection as well. So the case study will constitute 70% of your final grade for this assignment task, and the personal reflection will constitute 30% of your final grade for this assignment task. The related outcomes critically consider the humanities in the context of primary school environments. If we take a look at the assignment details now. So first of all, establish your team. It says choose a partner with whom to work. Teams are to contain either 2 or 3 members. We really don't mind. Make contact with your team and share contact details, times for collaboration, modes of communication, etc. in an effort. You are setting up the ground rules and expectations for working productively as a member of a team. I've asked everybody to use Google Docs. This is a really effective way of communicating and collaborating within a team. It also allows you to share the document with your ELA, and that ensures that the ELA can keep a close watch just to make sure that everyone's on track. The last thing we need is to get an email a few days before the assignment is due to say someone hasn't been collaborating and hasn't been able to take part in a team perhaps. So let's make sure that we're all on track. So the first step is to watch the case study videos. Now, as it says here, it says watch the case study videos. I'll just click through, and so we see we have 3 separate videos. Each of these has a transcript and also a scope and sequence document to go with it. The scope and sequence document isn't something you necessarily have to analyze within your assignment. However, it's very useful because the teachers refer to these documents as part of their planning. So it's useful to see what they're talking about. And some of them, for example, the first one has a number of resources. You can see how to get to the resources even if you don't have a log on to do that. So that's that. Just clicking back. So watch the 3 videos. You're not selecting a video, you're using all 3 videos for this assignment. So watch the 3 videos and make notes on each teacher's approach to humanities. There are 3 videos of approximately 15 minutes each. You can compare your notes to your partners and team notes, and come to a shared understanding of each case study. This is where you work together collaboratively. So it's useful to come together and say, well, I noticed this, you noticed that, and try and don't be too precious about keeping what you've identified, and work between yourselves on what's most relevant. So part A, team case study, 2,000 words. You'll work together to write a case study. The case study should address the following points and give examples from the case study. So expect a short introduction before you move into these points, and your introduction should be very simple, just to explain what you're going to address throughout your case study. So the first step, describe which curriculum areas are taught by the case study teachers. That'll be absolutely evident when you listen to the video, so that's fairly straightforward. Describe how the student cohorts affect how the teachers plan for and teach the humanities. Again, each of the teachers discusses the cohort and discusses those factors about the cohort that they feel impact on their teaching. So take a good note of that and think about how you might be able to discuss that, and obviously refer to literature as well. Why are the humanities, this is the next part, why are the humanities important in contemporary schooling? Use an example to illustrate your response. It's very important not to be too general here. That's why we've asked for an example. Number 4, critique a single subject approach to teaching the humanities, providing examples from the case studies to support your argument. Again, the case studies will provide you with subjects to discuss in this in terms of a single subject approach. And number 5 is when we're critiquing a cross-disciplinary approach. So we're comparing and contrasting these two. You will be able to get some information from the videos reference to each of these and use that. And I would also obviously strongly expect you to be referencing the literature on these on each of these and the relevant and the relative advantages and disadvantages of each, and that's your discussion piece. What do the case studies, number 6, what do the case studies tell you about the broader societal context in which the humanities are taught? So this is an opportunity again to refer to the literature, try and link it to your own experience and to the videos as well. And number 7, remaining questions. So as you're going through this, there will be areas you think that perhaps could be covered and that you're unsure of. Remaining questions pose 4 questions that continue to puzzle you, or that you could follow up or do further research upon completion of this unit. So ideally, these things will pop up to you and make you wonder and think about, and that's what you need to be including in this part. So I will also be presenting, or we will also be presenting an exemplar in the Collaborate session next Tuesday, 7:30, remember. So an exemplar will be presented and discussed in the Assignment 1 Collaborate session that may provide you with additional ideas about how to approach the task. Then after that, I'll post those on the Padlets in each of your Q&As. So you'll be able to refer to the exemplar after that as well. Please note, the 2,000 word limit is for the team, not for each individual member. This is to recognise the time you've spent working and collaborating together, and this is an important part of the task and one we wanted to capture and acknowledge. So yes, this is the key part. This is the main part. 70% is the mark is for the collaborative part and the case study, and that's a 2,000 word limit for that section. So throughout that section, and we're only talking about part A, use third person, support your assertions and claims with relevant evidence from the learning material and your own wider research. You're all pretty much experienced students now, and so you are expected to do wider research of your own and include these in your assignments. And adhere to APA referencing conventions, including in-text citations, etc. So then we turn to the part B. This is the individual personal reflection, which is only 500 words. So 2 parts. Reflect on the 3 teachers that have been interviewed and how this has contributed to your learning about humanity. So hopefully something they've discussed will strike you as something you can use yourself. And secondly, to reflect on your experience working in a team on the case study and the implications for your ability to work collaboratively with your future peers. So this isn't about how you went about doing things so much, or complaining about someone not being part of a team, etc. This is about your reflections about working collaboratively and your ability to work collaboratively. This is important. It's something you'll do as a teacher regularly, and it's an important part of teaching. Additional resources. Actually, before I turn to additional resources, because this is a reflection, this section would be in first person. Okay, so part A is third person, part B is first person. Additional resources. We have a referencing guide, and this will come up without me. Yep, here we go, referencing guide. So obviously this is the APA style. We have some assignment support. So let's see what comes up there. Okay, if I put let's see what comes up. There are various, there we go. There's lots of pages that are useful. There's one here getting started with assignments. You're all fairly as I said before, you're experienced students, so lots of this will be fairly straightforward for you guys, but there's always something interesting in there for you. The reflective writing element, there's a really good piece there. It's worth having a look at. So don't be afraid to go onto there, have a read through. And this is something really important and really useful is the teamwork tips. Again, there's a few different sections to this, and I think it's really important that there's a few little team contracts you can click onto, and they're really useful and worthwhile looking at before you start or in the early stages, just to get clear expectations from each other. So there we have the assignment details, and if you follow these 1 to 7 really closely and make sure that you do one step at a time, then you will meet all the requirements of this assignment. I would strongly suggest using these 1 to 7 points as subheadings throughout, or even headings throughout your case study, and discussing each individually under those headings, and that way you'll make sure you cover everything you need to cover. So the submission details overview. Part A, so each team member will submit Part A, team case study. It says here, please include the name of the team members on the first page. Part B, your own individual reflection, and then a reference list for Part A and Part B. These can all be one document, so Part A, Part B, and then the reference list. And remember, the reference list is for Part A and B together. Just because Part B is a reflection, it doesn't mean that you don't need to use literature resources. You are going to be discussing things in that section which you will need to support appropriately. The assessment will be submitted via Turnitin, and you'll find the relevant submission point below, etc. You also, of course, have Studiosity, which I'm told is useful for many people, and click onto there and click on next, and away you go. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at the assignment criteria. I'm not going to run through all of these. We have knowledge and understanding, pedagogical approaches to teaching the humanities, critique and analysis of the place and purpose of humanities, professional reflection, and academic expression. They're the areas we're looking at. You'll see that it's split up into the various grades. Let's just flick down. This is the first section for the team case study. Let's go to the high distinction. The case study demonstrates a sophisticated knowledge of the context and approaches that impact the teaching of humanities in primary school. The case study demonstrates a sophisticated capacity to critique and analyze and the place and purpose of humanities. And insightful connections have been made between how contemporary issues, teaching contexts, and approaches impact on the teaching of humanities education. Then, of course, there's a clarity of thinking in relation to teaching and learning. It's clearly evident, and obvious care and attention has been taken in its planning, editing, and proofreading all elements of the case study and reflection. And when we think in terms of the case study in particular, with 2 or 3 members, there should really be no mistakes in terms of the planning, editing, and proofreading of those sections. Please understand as well that in order to get a high distinction, you must meet all the criteria of a distinction. In order to get a distinction, you must meet all the criteria of a credit, and to get a credit, you must meet all the criteria of a pass as well. Moving to the personal reflections element, which is 30% of your final grade. So again, you must get all of a pass to get onto a credit, and etc., and everything as far as distinction in order to reach a high distinction, then plus. Your individual reflection demonstrates a sophisticated and insightful understanding of yourself as a future humanities teacher, and your awareness of your role in student learning in a broader societal context. Your individual reflection demonstrates a sophisticated capacity to understand and articulate an awareness of yourself as a teacher, working in a collaborative context and a continuously changing society. And clarity of thinking in relation to teaching and learning is clearly evident. Obvious care and attention has been taken in its planning, editing and proofreading, your personal reflection. So the expected level of attention to detail there as well. So that's pretty much it. It's a fairly straightforward assignment. And we've hopefully given you plenty of time to work on it now. Obviously jump over to the Q&A if you need to in order to ask any questions, and I know a few people have started doing that. There is no set template for this, but as I say, those in the assignment in the details of the 1 to 7, if you address each of those in turn, you can't go far wrong. And of course, there's 2 or 3 of you to make sure that you achieve that. I encourage you to start early. I encourage you to make sure that you have you've set up your Google Docs and that you've linked your ELA to that, so that they can just be sure that everyone's on track. If you feel it's necessarily, if someone's missing from your work, then again, quickly contact your ELA. Let's try and get it sorted out nice and early. And I urge everyone to, first of all, show respect to each other in terms of making sure that you're prepared to put the effort in together. If you find that maybe you've taken on too much this teaching period, for example, and you're going to drop the unit, just as an example, then make sure that you let your ELA know nice and early, and make sure you let your team members know if it's a group of 2, we're going to have to reassign people. So as much information on that as we can. Hopefully that won't be the case, but we are aware that sometimes that does happen. Unforeseen circumstances come along, so as quickly as possible, just so we ensure that someone isn't left high and dry. And I appreciate that very much, and I'm sure all of you too. So we look forward to seeing you on Tuesday evening, 7:30 Australian Eastern Date Time. It will be 6:30 here for me on the Gold Coast, and anyone else in Queensland, I think. And so we'll look forward to seeing you there. See you soon.